The rain fell hard against the windows of St. Mary's Orphanage. Inside, little Maya Johnson sat alone on her bed, staring at the small heart-shaped pendant in her palm. It was her only connection to a past she couldn't remember. At just 6 years old, Maya had already learned that life was harder for some people than others. "Lights out in 5 minutes," called Sister Margaret from the hallway. Maya quickly tucked the pendant under her pillow. The other girls in the room were already settling into their beds, but none spoke to Maya. She was different. Her dark skin and curly hair set her apart in this predominantly white orphanage. The other children often left her out of games and whispered when she walked by. Sister Margaret appeared in the doorway, her kind eyes finding Maya. "Still awake, little one?" Maya nodded. "Sister, why doesn't anyone want me?" The nun's face softened as she crossed the room and sat on the edge of Maya's bed. "God has special plans for special children. Your time will come." But Maya's time didn't come. Families visited the orphanage, but they always chose other children. By age 12, Maya understood she would likely grow up without parents. Instead of dwelling on what she couldn't change, she focused on school. Books became her escape and her strength. Across town, in a mansion overlooking the city, a young boy named Elijah Wright had everything Maya didn't. His adoptive parents, Richard and Catherine Wright, owned one of the largest tech companies in the state. They gave Elijah every advantage: private schools, sports lessons, and endless toys. Yet something always felt missing to him. Elijah also had a pendant, a match to Maya's, though neither knew this connection existed. His adopted mother had given it to him when she told him he was adopted at age 10. "Your birth mother wanted you to have this," she had explained. "She loved you very much, but she couldn't take care of you." "Did I have any brothers or sisters?" Elijah had asked. His mother's hesitation told him everything. "Focus on the family you have now," she had said, quickly changing the subject. By his 18th birthday, Elijah had grown into a serious young man with a brilliant mind for business. When his parents died in a plane crash that year, he inherited everything. Instead of enjoying his wealth, he threw himself into work, expanding the company while maintaining a low profile. Few people knew his face, as he preferred to operate from the shadows. Back at St. Mary's, 17-year-old Maya was preparing to leave the only home she'd known. Her grades had earned her a full scholarship to nursing school. "You've always had a gift for helping others," Sister Margaret said during their goodbye. "Your kindness will change lives someday." Maya touched the pendant around her neck. "I just wish I knew where I came from." "Sometimes the path forward is more important than the path behind," the nun said wisely. Years passed. Maya became an exceptional nurse at City Memorial Hospital, working long hours in the emergency room. Her colleagues respected her quick thinking and calm under pressure. Patients loved her gentle touch and warm smile. Meanwhile, Elijah built his company into a tech giant, though few knew his name or face. He lived alone in his mansion, surrounded by success but feeling empty inside. The pendant remained in his desk drawer, a reminder of unanswered questions. Neither Maya nor Elijah knew that fate was about to bring them together in the most unexpected way. The sibling connection they both secretly longed for was closer than either could imagine. The emergency room at City Memorial Hospital buzzed with activity as Maya Johnson hurried through her shift. It was nearly midnight, and rain pounded against the windows, creating a steady rhythm that matched her quickening heartbeat. Tonight felt different somehow. She couldn't explain it, but something in the air made her senses sharper. "Johnson, we got an incoming trauma," Dr. Patel called out. "ETA 3 minutes." Maya quickly prepared a trauma bay, her movements efficient and precise after years of practice. The ambulance sirens grew louder, then stopped abruptly as they reached the hospital entrance. The paramedics rushed in with a stretcher. On it lay a man in expensive but soaked clothing. His face was swollen beyond recognition, his breathing shallow and labored. Male, approximately 35 years old, found unconscious in his car. "Appears to be anaphylactic shock. No ID on him," the paramedic reported. Maya moved into action immediately. The man's throat was closing, and his pulse was weakening by the second. While Dr. Patel prepared the medications, Maya noticed something strange, a rash pattern that didn't match typical allergic reactions. "Doctor, I think there's something else happening here," she said, pointing to the unusual markings on his neck. Dr. Patel hesitated. "Let's stick to protocol, Johnson." But Maya trusted her instincts. Sir, with respect, this looks like a reaction to shellfish combined with something else. Has anyone checked for other substances? The doctor frowned but nodded for her to continue. Maya quickly examined the man's mouth and found traces of what looked like mushroom particles stuck in his teeth. He's having a dual reaction. Shellfish and wild mushrooms. Maya exclaimed. We need to adjust the treatment immediately. Her quick thinking changed the course of action. Within minutes, the medical team administered the correct combination of medications. The mysterious man's breathing steadied, his pulse strengthened, and the swelling began to subside. 4 hours later, when the danger had passed, Maya checked on the patient during her rounds. He was still unconscious but stable. As she adjusted his IV, something caught her eye, a thin chain around his neck. Following protocol, she carefully removed it to prevent any choking hazard during recovery. Attached to the chain was a heart-shaped pendant that made Maya freeze in place. It looked exactly like hers, the same unusual design, the same tiny engraving on the back that she'd never been able to decipher. Her hand instinctively went to her own neck, feeling her pendant through her scrubs. That's impossible, she whispered. Just then, the man's eyes fluttered open. Deep brown eyes that somehow seemed familiar stared back at her with confusion. Where am I? He asked, his voice hoarse. City Memorial Hospital, Maya answered, quickly tucking his pendant into the small belongings bag. You had a severe allergic reaction. Do you remember what happened? The man tried to sit up but winced in pain. Business dinner. Seafood restaurant. Then nothing. I'm Maya, your nurse. Can you tell me your name? He hesitated, studying her face. James Smith, he said finally. Maya noticed the slight pause, the way his eyes shifted. He was lying about his name, but why would someone hide their identity? What Maya didn't know was that James Smith was actually Elijah Wright, the reclusive CEO whose face rarely appeared in public. He had learned long ago that anonymity protected him from those who only wanted his money and power. As Maya checked his vitals, Elijah watched her carefully. Something about her seemed strangely familiar, the way she tilted her head when concentrating, the small scar above her right eyebrow. Have we met before? He asked. Maya smiled professionally. I don't think so. I would remember. Neither realized that the pendants connecting them were more than mere coincidence. The truth that would change both their lives forever was just beginning to unfold. 3 days passed, and James Smith remained at City Memorial Hospital for observation. The doctors wanted to ensure no lasting damage had occurred from his severe allergic reaction. During this time, Maya found herself assigned to his care more often than not. There was something about this mysterious patient that intrigued her. Perhaps it was the way he spoke, educated and precise, yet trying to sound casual. Or maybe it was how he carefully avoided questions about his work and family. Whatever the reason, Maya felt drawn to him in a way she couldn't explain. On the morning of the 4th day, Maya entered his private room with his medication. She found him sitting up in bed, working intently on a sleek laptop. Good morning, Mr. Smith, she said cheerfully. Feeling better today? He quickly closed his laptop. Much better, thanks to you. Dr. Paddle told me you were the one who realized I had a dual allergic reaction. You saved my life. Maya shrugged modestly. Just doing my job. No, he insisted. Many would have missed it. You have exceptional instincts. As she checked his vital signs, she noticed the pendant around his neck again. The curiosity was too strong to ignore. That's an interesting necklace, she commented, trying to sound casual. I've never seen anything quite like it. Elijah's hand moved protectively to the pendant. It's a family heirloom. The only thing I have from my birth mother. Maya nearly dropped the blood pressure cuff. Birth mother? You're adopted. He nodded, suddenly looking vulnerable. My adoptive parents were wonderful, but yes, I never knew my biological family. Maya took a deep breath and reached beneath her scrubs, pulling out her own pendant. She held it next to his. Like this one? She asked softly. Elijah's eyes widened as he looked from one pendant to the other. They were identical, the same unusual heart shape, the same mysterious symbol engraved on the back. Where did you get that? He whispered, his voice shaking. It was with me when I was left at St. Mary's Orphanage as a baby, Maya explained. No note, no name, just this pendant. A heavy silence filled the room as they both processed what this might mean. "This can't be coincidence," Elijah finally said. He studied her face intensely. "When's your birthday?" "April 15th. At least, that's the day I was found. I don't know my actual birth date." Elijah's face paled. "I was born on February 20th, 28 years ago." "I'm 26, Maya said quietly. Their eyes met, both minds racing with the same impossible thought. The moment was interrupted when Dr. Paddle entered the room. "Good news, Mr. Smith. Your test results look excellent. We can discharge you today." After the doctor left, Elijah turned to Maya with determination in his eyes. "I need to tell you something," he said. "My name isn't James Smith, it's Elijah Wright." Maya gasped. Everyone in the city knew the Wright name, the reclusive tech billionaire who never appeared in public. "Why hide your identity?" she asked. "When you have money, it's hard to know who to trust," he explained. "But I trust you, Maya, and I need to know if what we're both thinking is possible." He took out his phone and showed her a private investigator's card on the screen. "This person helped me research my adoption years ago. With your permission, I'd like him to compare our backgrounds, maybe even do DNA testing." Maya touched her pendant, the only connection to her past. Finding family had been her lifelong dream, one she'd almost given up on. "Yes," she whispered. "Let's find out the truth." Neither could have guessed how their discovery would shake the foundations of both their lives, or the dangers that would emerge from uncovering long-buried secrets. The next week passed in a blur for Maya. By day, she continued her shifts at the hospital, trying to focus on her patients. By night, her mind raced with questions about Elijah Wright and the matching pendants. Could they really be related? After a lifetime of having no family, the possibility both thrilled and terrified her. Elijah had been discharged from the hospital but stayed in touch daily. He had given her his private number, something he rarely shared with anyone. On Friday evening, Maya's phone rang as she walked to her small apartment. "I have news," Elijah said without greeting. "Can you meet me? It's important." An hour later, Maya found herself entering the most expensive restaurant in the city. The host led her to a private room in the back where Elijah waited. Though fully recovered, he still looked tense. "Thank you for coming," he said, standing as she entered. "Please sit." On the table between them sat a manila folder. Elijah's fingers rested on it protectively. "The investigator finished his preliminary research," he explained. "I wanted us to see the results together." Maya nodded, her heart pounding. "I'm ready." Elijah opened the folder and spread out several documents. "Your orphanage records show you were left at St. Mary's on April 15th. The staff estimated you were about 3 months old." "That's what Sister Margaret always told me," Maya confirmed. "According to my adoption papers, I was born to a woman named Esther Johnson." Maya gasped. "Johnson? That's my last name." "It's a common name," Elijah cautioned. "But there's more. The orphanage gave you that last name, but look at this." He pointed to a faded hospital record. "This is a partial birth certificate found with my adoption papers. It mentions Esther had another child approximately 2 years after me." Maya leaned forward, studying the document closely. "It doesn't list a name." "No, but the timing matches, and then there's this." Elijah pulled out a yellowed newspaper clipping dated 26 years ago. The headline read, "Young mother dies in apartment fire, infant missing." The article says Esther Johnson died in the fire, but her baby wasn't found in the apartment. Firefighters speculated someone rescued the child before they arrived, Elijah explained, his voice tight with emotion. "The date is just 1 day before you were left at St. Mary's." Maya's hands trembled as she pieced together the story. "You think someone saved me from the fire and brought me to the orphanage?" "It fits," Elijah said softly, "and explains why we have matching pendants. She must have given us both the same necklace." They sat in silence for a moment, the weight of this possible connection hanging between them. "There's one way to know for certain," Elijah finally said, placing 2 small boxes on the table. "DNA test kits, if you're willing." Maya stared at the boxes. All her life, she had wondered where she came from, who she belonged to. Now the answer might be sitting across from her, a successful, intelligent man who shared her blood. "What if we're not related?" She whispered her deepest fear. Elijah reached across the table and squeezed her hand. Then I still owe you my life, and I'd be honored to call you a friend. His kindness brought tears to her eyes. And if we are? Then neither of us has to be alone anymore. Maya picked up one of the test kits and opened it with determined fingers. Let's find out. As they completed the tests together, Maya noticed a black car parked across the street through the restaurant window. A man with sunglasses watched the building intently. When he saw Maya looking, he quickly turned away. Is everything okay? Elijah asked, noticing her distraction. Maya shook her head, dismissing her suspicion. It's nothing. Just nervous about all this. What she didn't realize was that their investigation had caught someone's attention. Someone who had very good reasons to keep the past buried forever. The search for truth had put both their lives in danger. 3 days after submitting their DNA tests, Maya noticed the same black car parked outside her apartment building. The man with sunglasses sat inside, pretending to read a newspaper whenever she looked his way. A chill ran down her spine. Something wasn't right. Maya grabbed her phone and called Elijah. I think someone's watching me, she said quietly, peering through her blinds. What does the car look like? Elijah's voice was suddenly sharp. She described the black sedan and the man inside. There was a long pause before Elijah spoke again. Pack a bag. I'm sending my driver to get you in 20 minutes. Don't use the front door. Go through the back exit. What's going on? Maya demanded, her heart racing. I'll explain everything when you get here. Trust me, Maya, please. An hour later, Maya sat in Elijah's home office, a cup of untouched tea growing cold in her hands. His mansion was everything she expected. Elegant, expensive, and impersonal. Like a museum rather than a home. I received the DNA results this morning, Elijah said, pacing the room. I was going to call you tonight. Maya set down her cup. And? He stopped pacing and looked directly at her. It's a match. 99.4% probability that we're siblings. Same mother, same father. Even though she had suspected it, hearing the confirmation made Maya's world tilt. She had a brother. After all these years of being alone, she had family. But that's not why I brought you here. Elijah continued, his expression grim. After I got the results, I decided to dig deeper into our mother's death. Something about that fire never made sense. He pulled up files on his computer. According to these records, the fire started in the electrical system, but the building had just passed inspection 2 weeks earlier. You think it wasn't an accident? Maya asked, her voice barely above a whisper. I think someone wanted our mother dead, Elijah said flatly. And now that we're asking questions, they're watching us. Maya felt sick. But why? Who would want to hurt her? Elijah hesitated before opening a drawer and removing an old photograph. This was in my adoption file. It's our mother. Maya stared at the image of a beautiful young black woman with kind eyes and a bright smile. She had Maya's nose and Elijah's determined chin. She worked as a housekeeper for a wealthy family called the Harringtons, Elijah explained. My adoption records show that Richard Harrington arranged my adoption to the right family. He kept it very quiet, paid a lot of money to make it happen quickly. Were they helping her? Maya asked. That's what I thought at first, but then I found this. He handed her a yellowed newspaper clipping dated a few months before the fire. The headline read, Harrington family lawyer threatens legal action against former employee. Our mother was planning to sue them, Elijah said quietly. The article doesn't say why, but it must have been serious. Maya's mind raced with the implications. You think they were responsible for the fire? But that was 26 years ago. Why would anyone care now? Because old man Harrington's son is running for Senate, Elijah explained. If it came out that his family was involved in a young woman's death and the separation of her children, this campaign would be over. The pieces began to fall into place. Maya remembered the man watching her apartment, the way he seemed to be waiting for something. So what do we do? She asked. Elijah's expression hardened. We find proof. I have resources, connections that can help us uncover the truth. It could be dangerous, Maya warned. That's why I brought you here. This house has security, and my staff is trustworthy. He took her hand. We just found each other, Maya. I'm not going to lose you now. As night fell, neither of them noticed the security camera at the gate briefly flicker before returning to normal. Someone had hacked into Elijah's system, and they were watching every move. Maya woke with a start, momentarily confused by the unfamiliar surroundings. The guest bedroom in Elijah's mansion was larger than her entire apartment. Sunlight streamed through expensive curtains as she remembered yesterday's revelations. She had a brother, and their mother might have been murdered. A soft knock at the door interrupted her thoughts. "Maya, are you awake?" Elijah called. She quickly put on the robe left for her and opened the door. Elijah stood there, already dressed in a crisp suit, holding a folder. His face was pale, eyes red-rimmed from lack of sleep. "I found something," he said without preamble. "Come downstairs." In Elijah's office, papers and photographs covered every surface. A digital evidence board displayed on a large screen showed connections between names and events. "You've been up all night," Maya observed. Elijah nodded. "I couldn't sleep. Not with what I discovered." He pointed to the screen. "Thomas Harrington, the Senate candidate, was 19 when our mother worked for his family. According to these old employment records, she quit suddenly after working there for 3 years." "Why did she leave?" Maya asked. "That's what I couldn't figure out, until I found this." He handed her a sealed envelope. It was in a hidden safe behind my adoption papers. My adoptive father must have kept it as insurance. Maya opened the envelope with trembling hands. Inside was a handwritten letter dated a month before the fire that killed their mother. "To whom it may concern," she read aloud. "My name is Esther Johnson. I am writing this letter because I fear for my safety and the safety of my children. If anything happens to me, please know that Thomas Harrington is the father of my son Elijah, born of a relationship that was not consensual. He has threatened me repeatedly since I told his family I was pregnant." Maya's voice broke as she continued reading the painful account of a young woman's struggle against a powerful family. The letter explained how Esther had been paid to stay quiet when Elijah was born, but when she became pregnant again years later with another man's child, Maya's father, the Harringtons had demanded she give up both children or face consequences. "She refused to give us up," Maya whispered, tears streaming down her face. "She was going to fight for us. And they killed her for it," Elijah said, his voice tight with anger. "But they didn't count on someone rescuing you from the fire. Someone who knew you should be kept hidden." A sudden thought struck Maya. Sister Margaret. She always seemed to know more than she told me. She was so protective. Elijah nodded. "I've already sent someone to speak with her. If she was involved in saving you, we need to hear what she knows." Just then, Elijah's phone rang. His security chief's voice came through clearly on speakerphone. "Sir, we've detected a breach in the system. Someone accessed your security cameras last night, and there's more. We've identified the man watching Ms. Johnson's apartment. He works for Harrington Security Services." Maya and Elijah exchanged alarmed looks. "They know we're together," Maya said quietly. "And they know what we found," Elijah added. "We need to act quickly." The security chief's voice turned urgent. "Sir, there's a car approaching the gate now. It's registered to the Harrington family." Elijah's expression hardened. "Let them in. It's time we faced this directly." Maya grabbed his arm. "Are you crazy? These people might have killed our mother." "That's exactly why we need to confront them," he said firmly. "But not without protection." He opened a drawer and pulled out a small recording device. "We're going to get them to admit what they did, and we're going to make sure everyone hears it." As the doorbell rang through the mansion, Maya and Elijah stood side by side, the matching pendants around their necks catching the morning light. Whatever came next, they would face it together, as family. The heavy wooden doors of Elijah's mansion swung open to reveal a tall, silver-haired man in an expensive suit. Thomas Harrington looked every bit the polished politician his campaign posters portrayed. Confident smile, firm handshake, and eyes that revealed nothing. "Elijah Wright," he said smoothly. "It's been a long time." "Not long enough," Elijah replied coldly. "This is my sister, Maya Johnson." Thomas's practiced smile faltered for just a second as his eyes darted to Maya. "Sister? I wasn't aware you had family." "Neither was I, until recently," Elijah said, leading them into the living room. The recording device sat hidden beneath a book on the coffee table. "It's interesting what you can discover when you start asking questions about the past." Thomas settled into an armchair, looking completely at ease. "And what questions have you been asking?" Maya stepped forward, her heart pounding but her voice steady. Questions about our mother, Esther Johnson. About why she died in a fire 26 years ago. A tragic accident, Thomas said, his expression appropriately somber. I remember when it happened. The whole household was devastated. Devastated enough to separate her children, Maya challenged, to hide the fact that we were siblings. Thomas's smile disappeared entirely. I don't know what you think you know. We know everything, Elijah interrupted, placing their mother's letter on the table. We know you're my biological father. We know you threatened our mother when she wouldn't stay quiet, and we know the fire that killed her wasn't an accident. A heavy silence filled the room. Thomas stared at the letter, his face growing pale. Where did you get that? He whispered. My adoptive father kept it, Elijah said. Insurance, I suppose, in case you ever tried to cause trouble for his family. Now it's insurance for us. Thomas stood suddenly, his calm facade cracking. Do you have any idea what this could do? I'm weeks away from winning a Senate seat. We don't care about your political ambitions, Maya said firmly. We care about justice for our mother. Thomas paced the room, running his hands through his perfect hair. It wasn't supposed to happen that way, he muttered, almost to himself. No one was supposed to get hurt. Elijah and Maya exchanged glances. The recording device was capturing every word. What wasn't supposed to happen? Elijah pressed. Thomas sank back into the chair, suddenly looking older. The fire. It was just meant to scare her, to convince her to take the money and leave town with both of you. His voice cracked. My father arranged it. I didn't know what he was planning until it was too late. Your father? Maya asked. Richard Harrington didn't build his empire by playing nice, Thomas said bitterly. When Esther threatened to go public about what happened between us, he took matters into his own hands. You let him, Elijah accused. You stood by while they arranged our mother's murder. I was young and scared. By the time I found out what he'd done, she was already gone. Thomas looked at Elijah with pleading eyes. I made sure you went to a good family. I tried to find her daughter too, but no one knew what happened to the baby. Maya felt tears burning behind her eyes. I was rescued by someone who brought me to St. Mary's orphanage. I grew up alone, thinking no one wanted me. Thomas lowered his head. I'm sorry. For all of it. Sorry isn't enough, Elijah said firmly. We want the truth made public. Your father may be beyond justice now, but you're not. Thomas looked up, desperation in his eyes. What you want from me? A full confession, Maya said. On record. About everything, what happened to our mother, how we were separated, all of it. And then, Thomas asked quietly. Then we'll see if the voters still want you as their senator, Elijah replied. Outside the mansion, Sister Margaret arrived in a taxi, clutching an old photo album and a small box. The final pieces of Esther Johnson's story were about to come together, bringing long-awaited closure to her children at last. 1 year later, Maya stood at her mother's grave, placing fresh flowers beside the new headstone. The simple granite marker read, Esther Johnson, beloved mother of Elijah and Maya. Justice delayed is not justice denied. She would be proud of you, said Sister Margaret, who stood beside her. The elderly nun had become a frequent visitor in Maya's life since that fateful day when all the secrets had finally come to light. Of both of us, Maya corrected, glancing at Elijah, who was speaking quietly with their lawyer near the cemetery entrance. The past year had transformed both their lives. Thomas Harrington's recorded confession had not only ended his political career, but had led to criminal charges against him as accessory to arson and negligent homicide. The trial had made national headlines, bringing attention to the power of wealthy families to cover up their crimes. Sister Margaret had revealed the final pieces of the puzzle. On the night of the fire, she had been working late at a nearby church when she heard the explosion. Racing to the scene, she had found Maya, then just a baby, clutched in the arms of a neighbor who had pulled her from the burning building. The neighbor knew your mother was in trouble, Sister Margaret explained. She didn't know who was after Esther, only that someone powerful wanted to hurt her. She thought the baby would be safer if no one knew where she was. The photo album Sister Margaret had preserved all these years contained pictures of Esther holding baby Elijah, her eyes filled with love. There were letters Esther had written but never sent, describing her dreams for her children and her determination to keep them together against all odds. Elijah finished his conversation and joined them at the grave. His company had established a foundation in their mother's name, providing legal assistance to vulnerable women and children standing up against powerful interests. Maya now ran the foundation, having left her nursing job to devote herself to this new purpose. The settlement was finalized this morning, Elijah said, placing his hand on Maya's shoulder. The Harrington estate has transferred the funds as ordered by the court. Maya nodded. Money couldn't bring back their mother or the years they had lost. The substantial settlement would fund the foundation's work for decades to come. There's something else, Elijah continued, a hint of excitement in his voice. We found her. Maya's eyes widened. The neighbor who saved me? Yes, she's living in Arizona now. She's willing to meet us whenever we're ready. Tears filled Maya's eyes. So many pieces of her past had been recovered in just 1 year, her brother, her mother's story, and now the woman who had saved her life. As they walked back to the car, Maya noticed the matching pendants they both still wore every day. She touched hers gently. You know what still amazes me, she said softly, that we found each other in the most unexpected way. If you hadn't had that allergic reaction, if you hadn't been working that night, Elijah added. If you hadn't noticed the dual reaction symptoms, Sister Margaret chimed in with a smile. Maya laughed. It's like she brought us together somehow. That evening, Maya and Elijah hosted a small dinner at Elijah's mansion, which now felt like a home, filled with photos of their mother and new memories they were creating together. Friends and supporters of the foundation gathered to celebrate the first anniversary of its creation. As Maya looked around at the faces of people united in a cause greater than themselves, she felt a sense of peace she had never known before. The abandoned girl and the hidden CEO had not only found each other, but had transformed their pain into purpose. Later, as the guests departed, Elijah raised his glass in a private toast. To Esther, he said solemnly. To our mother, Maya added, and to the truth that finally set us all free. Outside, the stars shone brightly in the night sky, as if Esther Johnson was smiling down on her children, together at last, just as she had always wanted.